when we're thinking stepping in out of the storm, a lot of chaos, a lot of negativity, a lot of stuff about, as we say, getting back on our feet. And I can't think of a better person to be here with us today than Delegate Sam Rasoul. And it just so happens, perfect timing. And I love that alignment. But it is about our strength and our empowerment together, that when we are feeling this negativity, that one, we're kind to each other. We show each other grace. And we also make space to listen to each other. A lot of us have different opinions about what we're experiencing right now, the feelings of what maybe we should do going forward with our party, with this election. And I know that it's really a great time to kind of be with people, positive people, and to talk about this. And I think then it definitely gives us that ability to think more clearly. So I can't wait today when we talk, when we're going to talk about maybe listening more, speaking less, and feeling the moment. So we're glad you're here with us, because we have to be resilient. That's for sure. So let's get to some show business. I see that people are coming in from all over the country, just coming off the Women's Summit. Speaking of trying to uplift our movement, uplift, invest in the grassroots. Our Women's Summit on June 28th and 29th was a huge success. Thank you already. For some in this room who don't know about us, we're Network Nova. We produce this media platform, and also we do events like the Women's Summit. And we hope you'll stay with us and join us for all that we do. And we'll be doing a lot of programming in the next coming months too around this election. But we wanted to say that, wow, it feels good to be back. We took off a couple weeks, so also taking a little break is also good for us. But if you're new to the show, what we do is we ask you to put your information in the chat, use the chat, have a lot of fun, introduce yourself, talk about stuff. But if you get rude, get a little bit nasty, we also just like to kick you out. That's what we do. And then at the after chat, a favorite part today, we're going to have a great time with Sam Rasoul of the Impact Center, also the Delegate. And though we will use the after chat today to talk more about being resilient, more about what we want to do in this time, and we want to make sure that you participate. So the after chat's a lot of fun. So make sure that after 1 o'clock you join us. And if you're a patron of the show, yay, yippee you! Thank you so much for investing in us. It's great, a woman-led organization, people putting money in our pocket. This is important to us. You just make us and uplift us. So thank you to our patrons today. We hope if you want to, we put a link in there if you want to join and be part of our community. That would be awesome. And we're also on Apple, Spotify, and we also are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So you can also listen to us, and also on our YouTube channel. So great. Okay, let's get started. From Network Nova Live, it's July 12th, 2024. You are on the Friday Power Lunch, and I'm Catherine White, your host, bringing you the guests, the issues, the action, all in one room to get things done and to make politics fun. Yes, yes, yes. And today our theme is understanding your why. Hey, you know, we say, it gets a little tiring to say it, but I'm going to say it again. No one is coming to save us. We know that. So it's up to us. And again, after the wonderful Women's Summit and all the great programming, we're continuing that programming for the month of July into August. We will be featuring different kind of learning sessions on our Fridays. And today we're so excited to have Delegate Sam Rasoul. Welcome, Sam. How is Roanoke? Want to bring Sam up for a second? Let's say hi to Sam real quick.
Hey.
Sam, can we spotlight you? Where are you? There you are. Welcome all the way in from Roanoke.
Yeah, pleasure to be with you. Roanoke is great. Happy to be with Network Nova. Appreciate all that you do to bring good people together.
Yeah, and you are coming in you came to the Women's Summit as well. And did you do some of this training when you did the Women's Summit? I didn't get to talk to you, but did you also do some stuff for us there?
We've done some of this. We started the Impact Center right after Donald Trump's election in 2016, putting together curriculum on a better way to engage. And fortunately, you've been a great partner every step of the way.
Good. Well, we'll come back with you because we're really looking forward to talking about it. But yes, so if people don't know, you started the Impact Center, and we can put information in there, especially helping folks that are running for office, and then folks like us that need that. You have always been one of the best people to do a workshop with. And as a leader, you taught me so much. So I appreciate you being here today. So thanks.
My pleasure.
All right. So let's bring up Sidekick and Master of Ceremonies and Fun. And you have your what's the t-shirt you have on today, Fennell? What do you got?
She is strong, she is powerful, she is brave, she is unstoppable. That who is us.
That is us. Oh, I love it. Okay, so wow, it's good to be back. I don't know about you. Do you feel a little rusty, or are you?
No, I don't feel rusty at all. I feel really good. I've been talking about the summit. I've been sharing it with family and friends. I've been talking about the power lunch. In fact, I'm so excited because my cousin Evelyn on the Eastern Shore is on today with about five of her friends to listen to the power
Nice.
lunch, and then they'll have lunch after. So I think that's fantastic. So we're going to have a great show for them today. But I know the first thing we want to do is to talk a little bit about this post-summit programming that I want everybody to know about, which is why it's so important that Sam is here today. And it's so important based on where we are. And you guys have talked about that, understanding your why. But next week, we'll have Deepak Puri, who will talk about how to level up your tech game. And so folks can look for us to send some information so that we can be as powerful on social media and everywhere else we need to be while we are, getting ready for this election. And then the week after, we will have Kyle Sampson, who will talk to us about Kyle Spencer, excuse me, who will talk to us about how to talk to the news and how to help them understand what's at stake here and why they need to get it right. So I think our post summit will be pretty awesome too.
Yeah, it fits perfectly. It's so funny. Like I said, planning it out, we couldn't have planned for it better. And some of it was just serendipitous. I think having Kyle Spencer at the end talk about what we see, this rise of the right, this talk about Project 2025, trying to enlighten people what a Trump administration is and will look like. I think it is quite alarming when you really get into those details. So Kyle is it's really gonna be great because it's about talking to media, and I think what we see in the media is just a lack of real coverage, creating the chaos. Actually, it'd be interesting, but the media not really reporting on this, and making more issues than solving them.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think what I'd like to say, first of all, I'm so excited that Jess Piper is actually here in the audience
Oh,
today, and she was
great.
at this summit. So I'm so excited about that. So I know folks will be chatting with her. But I also wanted to encourage people to read and subscribe to her Substack. Jess was at the summit, and she had an opportunity to be on stage and talk to us about what it's like to be a rural Democrat. And really, what I walked away with is when you think about some of the things that are happening in rural states like Missouri, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, she says that's training ground. That's where they practice and decide, how are they going to make all of these things that we're talking about today in Project 2025 and white Christian nationalism, how they make it work. So I would encourage everyone to read The Loudest Pundits Don't Talk to Voters, which is really just talking about, after the debate and where people stand. So I encourage folks, it's going to be in the chat, pick it up, read it, and hopefully Jess will stay with us and you guys will read her Substack.
Yeah, I do. And I think that's one thing great. We had so many great takeaways of the summit, and Rachel Bidikofer was on stage. What a hoot. I'm going to say, if you came to the summit, she spent the whole weekend with us. She was in the green room like no one's business, and she was holding court and just telling everybody like it is. And I just appreciated that. And I just appreciated her investing in the grassroots like she does. And she gave us really a lot of her time. And then the bookstore had like a 50-person backup getting her book, which was awesome. But on stage, she really told it like it is. She's like, in this moment, it's no hand holding, right? She's just like, it's a different fight that we're in, and we have to make sure that we are bringing, we are telling it to voters like it is. We're not sugarcoating it. We're not saying, we're really just really showing the contrast.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And it was really funny because I have her book, and I think folks can see
Right.
I have her book. It's all paperclip because I've read this book to understand, and her strategy is, and so you guys will have to read this on your own, but it's pivot, belittle, and attack. And so that's not for every person, but there are opportunities when you need to do that. And she really talks about how you actually do that to make it work. So
Yes.
I would encourage folks, if you haven't read her book or talked to someone, you can talk to me because I got the strategy down.
Yeah.
I got it down. So I think it's interesting, but I think thinking about Rachel and how she talks about this, which you can
Right.
follow her on Twitter, then you can next talk about Simon and Jess Craven and Tom Bonnier and how they were on stage and talking about how we attack this. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I just listened to Tom Bon. Simon last night, Simon Rosenberg, who is, been the Hopian Chronicles leader in that, really listening to him last night. I mean, think about politics, things change so quickly and day to day, but, being able to listen to Simon and Tom, one, talk about the data, why it's important to follow the data. And I think even in this time when we're trying to figure out what's going on, we are looking at data and trying to understand how to interpret it, right? When we see the polls or we see the swing states showing that Biden is down or behind or whatever. So it's really important to understand the data, and Tom made that clear. And then I think Simon, in the moment, it is really, even listening to him last night, is being able to have an honest conversation as a family about what's going on. And I do think, the pile-on in public is not helpful to anybody, and wounding your candidate's never good, because if depending on how this goes, you don't want to wound your candidate, right? So I think having these honest conversations is really good, and sticking together is really good. And I was listening to Tara McGowan of Courier News saying the same things. It's not good to tear into each other as Democrats, to tear each other down, to start to fucking pile on. And this is what they want. And that's why Sam's here today. When we are in this moment, and we are lashing out, or we're just, the uncertainty, we have to be disciplined, right? And I think the 2 weeks we've been spent on this issue, this distraction, which is a true problem, that we're not focusing on our work. So I'd like to see us today see about understanding our why, to reconnect to that, and then also be able to focus on doing what matters at the same time, with the good intentions that this works, that we as Democrats show our strength. And it's important. So that's what I'm going to say. And you've heard it here from me.
Exactly. And, the thing is that I hear you say this all the time. When you feel like, oh, goodness, my head is about to pop off, you go, what can I do? Is it to go canvas? Is it to go write postcards? Is it go talk to people, talk to neighbors? Because that's the thing that uplifts you, is when you talk to someone and they get it, then you go, okay.
Yeah, I feel better. Or it could be washing 50 tablecloths from the Women's Summit, and with your husband yelling at you because you're not folding it correctly, and that will help you also. So without further ado, I want to make sure we have time for Sam, and we want to bring up Sam, if you could spotlight him, folks, and then hi. So let's talk about this, and we're just going to hand it over to you and get out of your way. But why don't we just set this up? Tell us about what we're going to be doing today, Sam.
Yeah, well, what we did after the 2016 election was to develop the Impact Center on a better way to engage. And so my background's in organizational development, leadership development, and I didn't see much in this space in the political work that I do. And so through training thousands of activist candidates and organizers, through hundreds of trainings, mainly in Virginia, today, we're going to take just a few minutes to have a snippet of some of this curriculum that I think might be best for the conversation today when we're talking about our direction and understanding our why.
Yeah, I feel like it's so important. And I just, the other day when I told you how I was feeling, I almost called to apologize, because I felt so emotional in the moment, explaining that why, trying to ground myself right now as an activist, feeling kind of unmoored. Feeling kind of like in the moment. So I have found through your trainings years ago that you've really helped all of us in our leadership capabilities. So I'm going to hand this over to you. We'll be right here on the sidelines. And thank you so much for being here. We're really excited.
My pleasure. So I will share my screen and get my slideshow up and going. I think we're moving right along. I see some thumbs up. Well, thank you again to Network Nova, to all of you who are doing such good work at the grassroots level. And we're happy to be doing yet another training with you, and I've loved being able to do it along the way. We'll start with this quote, stand for something or you'll fall for anything. Rosa Parks, a reminder that, if you are not pushing forward, you are falling behind. And it's a good reminder for all of us. So I'd love to invite you to put in the chat, and I already see that there are pretty, maybe several dozen messages in the chat, how we are feeling right now with all that is going on, in particular that's been going on over the past few weeks. I think it is important for us to discuss it. Catherine, I'm glad you did not call me to apologize about sharing your emotions. It is great for me as I'm thinking through having these discussions. Of course, you as a great friend, we need to know and we need to be sharing. And that this is part of our activism, is being able to convey what is deep inside of us. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of emotion, and rightfully so. And now to think that, certainly in some ways we're going into year 8 in all of this. So as you're sharing some in the chat, I am seeing lots of great comments here about what people's real feelings are, and I think that that's important to recognize this anxiety. And so when we're communicating with folks, we are not dismissive. What I think would be good is to also, reflect on what those feelings are compared to where we were. I remember my feeling at 2 a.m. election night in November 2016, when there was this kind of era of inevitability that this was happening, and then people quickly changed gears. Nobody went back in and became recluse. We had marches. But the anxiety never really went away. So it's important for us to reflect on that. So I want to tell you maybe for a moment what my feelings are. This has been, over the past 9 months in particular, been a particularly tough time on me and my family, with global events that are happening. And it's created lots of very difficult emotions for me. And it's been a new exploration for me. So I was leaving the Women's Summit, and I was on my way down to Richmond. I was in my car on I-95, and I was in bumper to bumper traffic. And before you knew it, somebody rear-ended me. I was going to an event in Richmond. Now it was low speed, so it wasn't too bad, but of course it's a hustle. I hadn't been in a car accident maybe in 15 years or so. But I had seen all the TikToks about how I'm supposed to react. And I get out of my car, and the guy gets out, and he's apologetic because he had rear-ended me. And instantly my heart was like just full of grace. I could see he had 3 little kids in the car with him. And we started talking. We were waiting on the police to come. We started talking. Turns out he had recently gotten divorced. His wife is in DC. He lives in Florida. He was on his way back. He had just picked him up. And I couldn't help it. I couldn't help but just be like, I know I'm supposed to be really pissed off at this guy right now, but it is not coming through. I had a few little trinkets in my car. I gave the kids little gifts because I could, I'm sure that they were a little shaken up. And this was a moment that I had felt so much negative energy. I had so many tears, blood, sweat, and tears over the past several months, that, to see someone in need, and clearly he was just having a bad day, right? That I had to, you had shared this word earlier, grace. I wanted that to come through. And so I didn't want to show you a picture of the car wreck. So instead I showed you a picture of my few kids while we were volunteering at the rescue mission. But in these times of chaos, remembering to be kind, remembering to have that grace sometimes is what can carry us. So today, there are 3 tips that I'm going to share with you that we want to trade with one another. First is we talked a little bit about this at the Women's Summit, learning to be 1% uncomfortable. When you're uncomfortable, especially moderately uncomfortable, you're actually growing. So that's a good thing. Number 2, owning chaos. Chaos is actually opportunity. When things are nice and calm, there usually isn't a lot of change happening, which means there isn't a lot of opportunity. So we're flipping this on its head today and thinking about the opportunity. And then lastly, it is that diets don't work. Activism is a lifestyle. I'm sure many of you have heard this before. And so I'm stealing that theme, that we want to develop a lifestyle that's sustainable as we move forward. So being uncomfortable, moderate emotional discomfort is actually a sign that we are growing as individuals. And so if you're feeling uncomfortable in your activism and the work that you are doing, especially if it's moderate, then you're probably doing something right. You're probably pushing yourself in a positive direction. So my kids, I used to think, man, there are these crazy parents who drive all over to different cities to watch their kids kick a soccer ball, and they pay ungodly amounts of money. And then all three of my kids came to me and said, we want to do that. And so I became a travel soccer dad, and we became travel soccer parents. And my kids came to me, and as they're learning, and I say, look, when you're going into practice, when you're going into the game, you're not trying to be the best person out there. Today's goal is to be 1% better. And so when we're talking about being uncomfortable in our activism, understanding, trying to figure out what we're going to do next, keep that in mind. What makes me feel 1% more uncomfortable? What's pushing me just a little bit today? How can I have some modest growth? And we can see that there's clearly a lot of benefit to that as we move forward. You do one thing that scares you every day, says Eleanor Roosevelt. These small things help to build us and build that courage that is necessary inside of us. Secondly, owning the chaos. Remember that this chaos represents opportunity. And so what are we going to do to own that? And you never miss the opportunity for a chaotic event to utilize it as a leader and figure out what we're going to do. In fact, chaos seems like it is sporadic, but in fact, there's a thing called chaos theory you can Google where it talks about how there's all these interconnected loops and how things begin to self-organize, and you can be part of how that organization occurs. So what we want to do for just a moment, actually, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and you can raise your hand. The question that I have for the group, because I thought it'd be good to hear from just a couple few people, is what opportunities come out of this chaotic time? We'd love to hear from you. I'm going to ask our organizers to see if there's one or two people who would like to raise their hand and chime in and let us know what they think in chaotic times, what opportunities, and maybe specific in these chaotic times, what opportunities that we have to potentially capitalize on.
Let's say ask Frida unmute. All right, Frida.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what's one thing that
I'm out in the
comes to
country.
mind?
Yeah, so people are like you were saying, anxious, concerned, and I think it was Jessica or somebody at the Women's Summit that was saying, take that anxiety and put it into action. So I think that this crisis, like to respond to people, like kind of like the fight or flight type of thing, like there's nowhere to run. So like we have to fight. And so when people are expressing, like, think about ways to get them connected. Like what can they do if they're worried about Trump getting reelected? There's so much we can do. I think it's a real opportunity to recruit people to join our movement.
Great, excellent. Yeah, great opportunity to recruit people to join our movement. I think Georgia might be next.
Hold on, Georgia. Go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go.
There, it's working. This is a wonderful opportunity for the bottom of the ticket to assert its rightful ownership and pull the top of the ticket. It's the people at the bottom that make the race, the race winnable.
Excellent point. We're so infatuated, and rightfully so, with the top of the ticket. However, there is a lot that's happening up and down the ticket across the country. Thank you. Maybe we'll take one or two more.
Hi, is that me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering if this might also be an opportunity to give us, to get us aligned to vote along party lines as opposed to personalities. Because to a large extent, the Republicans appear to have won primarily because they could get in line and they could just run with the candidate. I think to a lot of and the Democratic Party has not been able to do that. And this is an opportunity to be a little more devoted to parties and to work throughout the year as opposed to just before the elections. I got involved in this just this year. This is my first time witnessing this. So I have a fresh set of eyes, and I see a lot of enthusiasm now, but I've not seen any of this earlier. So it's something that you do from the ground up at an earlier time. And as the previous person mentioned, you also do it at the local level. And yeah, it starts at the local level and it needs to go up. And there's a lot of, I think we're very smug in the Democratic Party. And yeah, it's we've had an opportunity to reverse that, but we still don't. So I think it's about time.
Well, I think you brought up a couple of good points there. You know, certainly defining who we are as a party and Democrats and the values that we espouse. And then you mentioned smug there at the end, and that's important as the self-righteousness with which we communicate sometimes alienates a few folks. So I appreciate you sharing. And Anne, I believe,
Yep.
will be our final one.
Hello. So I just wanted to point out, and those of you who've seen me before know that I work on DC statehood. And I am noting that because of all the chaos, people are actually beginning to think about what in the world can we do? And I would like to suggest that this is a perfect time to focus on DC statehood, because we would add 2 new senators and a representative who can actually vote. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. DC, maybe even Puerto Rico, we can pile it on there. We have more work to do. Well, I appreciate you all sharing some thoughts and how this chaos represents the opportunity. And I think many good leaders represent that. When we've asked this question in the past in some of these trainings, you can see what some folks have said, and you all have reflected some of those thoughts: increased justice, new activism, bringing people in, awareness of intersectionality. That's a big part of all of this as we move forward, and elevating a variety of new voices for sure. So that's kind of number one. Number two, as we're thinking through this owning chaos, I want to give you a framework, remembering that political tribalism is actually a little bit different than we think. We often think that there's Republicans and Democrats, and then there's some persuadables in the middle. But from a tribalism perspective, very few people actually identify as Democrats tribally, and the neuroscience of it, and very few people identify as Republicans. Most people sit there in the middle. Yes, they vote Democrat, they vote Republican, but they're fundamentally asking, what are people doing for me? And it's important that we recognize, we've talked about in the past, Peoria 9 through Catalyst has come up with these 9, for example, voter buckets. And most of you, if we went through, would probably feel that you gravitate towards 1 or 2 of these buckets. I know this helps me clarify kind of where my values buckets are. And it helps us when we're communicating and thinking through owning the chaos, that we're not communicating just to the blues and the reds, that in fact there are many more layers to it. So what do we do in owning the chaos, and how do we figure this thing out? Well, I like to talk about fight, ignore, engage. There are a few folks that we fight, a few more that we ignore, and then a bunch that we need to engage. Who do you fight? You fight the bullies. For me, fighting the bullies has always been a kind of top of mind, and I found that voice in my time in politics. I think it was, I got down to the legislature and I found one of the biggest bullies, which was Dominion Energy, was just stealing money from ratepayers. And I was like, man, these are bullies. And then I found that these pipelines, natural gas pipelines, were just ramming through Virginia like big bullies. And that really, really got me going. So who do you fight? You fight the bullies. But then there are a bunch of folks that you just ignore. And the talking heads, there might be a relative, there might be folks certainly on your social media that do you no good to engage. But the vast majority of folks need to be engaged. And so when we're thinking about owning the chaos and how we're going to stake our claim, we're understanding that there are a lot of folks that need to be engaged in a lot of different ways. And sometimes that first conversation, that grace that we show, that kindness can open open a bridge there. Malala says, there's a moment where you have to choose whether to be silent or to stand up. And this is a unique moment for us. I think that we have an opportunity to stand up and say our voice is going to be heard. Look, for me, and I believe that that's the purpose of life, for us to be kind of comfortable. We are not really testing the limits here, really fighting for, there have been so many injustices before we came to this planet. There'll be many after we leave. Our job individually is to make the world around us a little bit more just. And when we're not doing that, we're probably not living the life that we should be. And so this is her framing. All right, the number 3 I wanted to mention is this framing. You've heard it in another context. I'm not dieting, I'm changing my lifestyle. Diets generally don't work in your lifestyle, in your life. You have to, any thing that you want to take on, you can't casually learn to be in music. You really have to, it has to be part of your lifestyle, for example. And so if you really want to engage in something, activism is a lifestyle. And activism can be tough, it can be trying. As Catherine mentioned, there's so many emotions. It's just, sometimes it's too much. Well, keep these few things in mind in your activism, because I think that for me, it is a lifestyle, but you've got to pace yourself. Number 1, start with your why, which we'll mention here in a moment. In other words, what drives you? What is your purpose? I got elected by being someone who's a consensus builder, who was able to bring a variety of pieces of the electorate together around kind of the betterment of our community. But I did realize along the way very quickly that I really, really don't like bullies. And part of my why was to stand up to these bullies. Number 2, focus on adding value. What is our role on the team today? And that the best activists know where are we the ones that are actually leading the charge? Are we there to be support mechanisms? What do we need to be doing to add value today in our activism? And then number 3, you've got to take plenty of short breaks. You've got to be able, just like in any battle, you've got to have that respite, and you've got to be intentional about that. So look, the reason why we have to chase that why is because fundamentally the neuroscience, when we do the all-day training, we kind of go through the neuroscience and how it impacts a lot of the communication that we do, the moral psychology. And so fundamentally, when you figure out what really moves you, what really gets you emotionally going, that is going to be an emotional driver and is the only thing that's truly sustainable when it comes to your activism. And so as we're thinking through this and moving forward and wanting to embrace activism as a lifestyle, let me tell you, there is no better example than Network Nova. And these wonderful, wonderful women, what I've been so impressed with as we're in year 8 here, is there, you remember the scene in January 2017, there was the March on Washington, and it led to historic election in 2017, and there was a sea change going into 2018, and but people ebbed and flowed, and those that turned it into a lifestyle that said, how are we going to make it sustainable? For example, the wonderful people who are helping to fund this very program, waking up every week, putting on this program, putting on the Women's Summit. I know not a year goes by when Catherine and company are like, is it time to hang it up? I mean, it is just so much to deal with. But the tenacity, and that tenacity is only sustainable by making it into a lifestyle. And they've been able to channel the right type of energy, the right type of emotion sustainably for many, many years now. And that's why they've been so successful. Now, the best activism, if we're thinking about in the next few minutes, kind of how we wrap all of this up, the best activism is equal parts anger and love. And I had plenty of reason to be pretty angry at this guy who rear-ended me. By the way, I was on my way racing down to give a speech to a large group of 6,000 people in Richmond. And so I was really needing to be someplace. And it just, it wasn't going to work for me to be in a bad place that day. And so the best activism we have is equal parts anger and love. In fact, the best leadership, if you think of the best leaders and, people that come to my mind, for example, I'm just a huge fan of President Obama, is the balance of a strength and warmth. And over time, those that were able to balance that, those are people that you want to gravitate towards you. You want them to lead you. If you're too warm, you're viewed as weak. If you're too strong, you're viewed as an authoritarian. But if you got that right balance, that's the best activism. And certainly that's the best way to engage. And many of you have heard this quote in the past. But in fact, as I mentioned before, to me, that's the purpose of life, is this activism, is that struggle. And so activism is my rent for living on this planet. So the three tips that we wanted to walk away with today as we're getting ready for the next several months, as we're trying to make sure that, we're taking back the House, that we're holding the Senate, that we do everything we can to push against the orange monster, as some of you have called him. The reality is that we've got to bite off pieces of this one little bit at a time. And so pushing ourselves to be uncomfortable the right way, owning that chaos and seeing it as an opportunity for growth, and that activism is a lifestyle. These are three things that I hope we can take away from today. Now, I will ask you in the chat, as I read through a few of them, I'd love for you, as we're thinking through some of the pieces that we've shared today, what is your takeaway in over the past 20, 25 minutes of what we've discussed? What's your takeaway that you're going to use to propel yourself as we're going to need all hands on deck in the coming months? In Virginia, in particular, for example, we've got 2 House races that are absolutely critical to win in order to take back the House of Representatives, which I think we can definitely be doing. I see Stephanie from North Carolina says, be 1% uncomfortable. That means you are growing. Exactly right. Thank you, Stephanie. So be thinking through some of the takeaways and that from what we've shared today, and just know that our activism is something that's going to be critical to ensuring that we not only take back the House, we hold the Senate, and that we push back against our orange monster friend. This is just one step in this marathon. And fortunately, our friends like Catherine have been in this struggle for at least 8 years. And so we really appreciate it. I see many, many people putting some great comments. Thank you so much for having me, but for all of the good work that you're doing with that. We can open it up. I'll kick it back over to Catherine. We can open it up to some questions and conversation.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. I think it really worked out. If people do have some comments, to put your hand up, and we like to, let people have a comment or some ideas. And I know that what we've been trying to do is focus on the work at hand. Like you said, we know I was actually talking to people about Abigail Spanberger's seat in Congressional District 7, that Eugene Vidman is running there, and we're finding that, yes, he does need help. There is some obviously trying to get grassroots people there to knock doors and do all that. So I think looking for things that we can do now, because to me, it's controlling what you can control, and things that you can't control, it just letting those go. I mean, what are your thoughts on, for me, just that's a big deal.
Yeah, so clearly, it's a really important point about focusing on what you have control over. And so you're listening to the news. There's all of this coming your way, and really, maybe 90% of it will create anxiety for you that you probably can have little control over. And so, being able to say, where can I focus my activism? Where's my voice in all of this? And so clearly, for example, there's this debate about the top of the ticket. Your anxiety and your opinion around it, like I can tell you, my anxiety and my opinion around it has no bearing on what's going to happen.
Exactly.
But it really does. It doesn't. But I can tell you that what we do here in Virginia, and me personally, will have an impact on whether or not we win those 2 seats here in Virginia. I can have an impact on that. And you all largely, especially here in Virginia, can. And so that's a great framing kit there, Catherine.
Yeah, I think that's true. So I want to bring in Fennell. And Fennell, what some of your takeaways about what you're hearing? And again, anybody else, if they want to put their hand up, I see that Jess Piper's here today, and maybe she'll even want to join us. So,
which would be awesome.
Yeah.
So I can tell you what I really loved. It was the fight, ignore, and engage. Because I think that sometimes you're going to battle for everything. And what I've walked away with today is that I can really help calm myself by understanding that I don't have to fight everything. So I can look at the bullies, like you said, and then I can really use a strategy and take them down where we need to, but also what to ignore, so that you get just really calm yourself by not wasting time and energy on things that are going to have no relevance. And then thinking about who to engage with, those friends, those family, those acquaintances, those neighbors, and giving grace to them. And so I feel very, very calmed, and I feel very, very focused after hearing this and understanding better how to keep myself engaged the right way. So I'm really grateful for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm gonna bring in somebody that needs to come in. Carrie Short. Carrie is our coalition person down in Virginia Beach. So tell us what you're thinking about down there. Because do you got your gloves off or on today? Do I have to make you unmute? Sorry, I forget. Maybe.
Okay.
There you go. Hey, Carrie.
I didn't have the power. That's how I'm feeling. I don't have the power. That's the greatest thing that I took away from this, is that embracing the chaos. We've heard it over and over again. There's always opportunity in chaos. So I feel a little powerless right now. I'm staying optimistic. I'm going to fight like hell for whoever's at the top of the ticket. But as a grassroots leader, I'm going to be really struggling to motivate people. And I think that's my biggest anxiety right now. People look to us, everyone on this call is a leader. Right. And I think we're all being called by our family members. Just think of the opposite of who we're going to influence for now. But in terms of who we reach out to. I'm thinking of who is reaching out to us. And at this point in our lives, we've all taken up this mantle. We're all leading this lifestyle of activism, right? You can't put it down. We picked it up. We put ourselves out there as leaders. We're leading that lifestyle. You all do it. We do it out here in the field. And so our folks are looking to us for leadership, and it's a little scary right now.
Yeah,
So I'm trying to stay positive.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say, and I know I see a couple hands, but I'll say that I got a call last night from a friend in Florida, and she's like, "What the hell is going on?" Those were her words. And what I can say is that we had a really long conversation. We talked to her husband after they lost the baby. In the meantime, she went into the bathroom and closed the door, so that was a big crisis because we didn't know where she was. It was hilarious. She's just starting to close doors. It's very funny. But the point is that, but I was able to talk to her because that was really based on what you just said. That was an engaging conversation that I could share facts and figures and share pieces of information that they didn't know. And I feel pretty confident that they feel like, okay, I got some. So we do have power, Carrie. We do have power.
Yeah.
And I think
I tell you sure. Well, we sent out a newsletter right after the debate. COVA Coalition sent out a newsletter, and we referenced it by giving our members QR codes of several messaging websites that we've all been using, ASO Communications, just all of it, the Substacks, right, so that we're trying to equip our members. And I think Friday Power Lunch, of course, is a great place to come and get equipped.
I'm going to bring Jim Gray into this conversation. Jim, I'm going to ask you to unmute. I don't know if we've met. Jim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm down here in Oklahoma, in Tulsa area. And Oklahoma's been in the news a bit lately with our superintendent of public education trying to bring the Bible into the public schools to be taught as a history book. And this is the question I have for the group here, because my activism has been rooted in a recent movie that came out called Killers of the Flower Moon. And it tells the story of what happened to the Osage people back in the 1920s. And I don't know if some of you all seen it or are familiar with the story, but it was directed by Martin Scorsese and starred Robert De Niro and Leo DiCaprio and Lily Gladstone. And the sad part is that the state of Oklahoma's lieutenant governor went to the Cannes Film Festival last year to promote the premiere and attend the event. And when he came back, a journalist here in Oklahoma asked him, "You've passed laws in Oklahoma, one particular called House Bill 1775, and it's preventing that book from being taught in public schools because it makes people feel uncomfortable. And apparently that's against the law now." And so what I've done, and this is the question I have, is that I've tried to stay in my lane in talking about the book banning, the rewriting of Oklahoma history and American history. And I've been doing it in a way where I promote the film as an educational tool to let people know that this is the way I chose to be politically active. And even though I've got opinions on a variety of different other subjects, I have chosen this lane. And Sam, maybe you can answer this question, or any of you all can. Is it best for one person to stick with one topic and just stay there so that they can be acknowledged, at least to be able to make a positive contribution to making change? Or does it serve us to be a mile wide and inch deep on 1,000 different issues? And I've chosen to just kind of narrow my lane just to this one area. What do you recommend?
I recommend that you get as deep as you can in one lane, number one. And then number two, in order to help you in your lane, you build a broad coalition by being there for others that are in their lane, like you're doing today. And so I think that is critical. And oftentimes we try to break off too much. Stick in your lane. And look, I was really inspired by your neighbors in Kansas. That was really the first vote that, to me, post Roe v. Wade, the decision from 2 years ago, and overturning Roe v. Wade, the Kansas vote to me was truly inspiring. Here in a ruby red state, people were like, "We are rejecting the crazy," and that it goes to show you, if you communicate to people the right way, using the right vernacular, you can strike a chord. So I hope you'll keep digging down deep in your lane.
I
Jim.
will. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Jim.
you.
I'm going to bring in Patty. Patty, I'm going to add you to the spotlight. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Welcome, Patty. How are you? If you can, there you go. Try to.
Yeah, there we go.
There
we go. Hi. So I'm down here in Southern Virginia in Mecklenburg County. I'm trying to be polite about this. As happens in many rural communities, the state and the national parties pay very little attention to us. Because we have so many registered Republicans. In Mecklenburg County in particular, if you look at registration, we're half Democrats, but the extreme right wing is so vocal. So I even Dennis, and I'm not calling you out to find fault with you, didn't know that CD5, we have Gloria Witt running.
We know that, right?
Yeah, for Bob Good's seat, head of the frickin' Freedom Caucus. So one of my concerns, if I'm still answering the question, is that we need to get resources and support and attention on these rural races.
Yes.
Because CD5 is huge. And
yes, Patty, I'm going to jump in here because I'm going to say to you, I agree. Absolutely. One thing I know about Gloria Witt, she was at the Women's Summit.
Yes.
We had her on stage. We've been working with her and interviewing her, and our goal is really to focus on CD. We have Karen Baker in 9, Ken Mitchell in 6, Gloria Witt in 5. And I feel like those are the areas, like Sam said, to find that lane. And I think this is how we getting more Democrats out to vote. Gloria, what a great candidate, right? To get people excited to vote. Is that down ballot? So is that your thoughts of really trying to focus on the down ballot in Virginia to help Tim Kaine?
I think not only helping support her, but we're going to need people to come down here physically and get people to the polls.
Sure.
There is overt voter suppression and intimidation happening in this congressional district. We just had the KKK tag again in South Hill. We've had in Appomattox that state troopers show up to ask Black families, did you actually sign for this person to get on the ballot?
Yeah, 5 is I was looking at 5 in the sense of when they had Marjorie Taylor Greene come out and the kind of white supremacist stuff going on there. I want Sam Rasoul, if you have any comments about these resources you're trying to bring into these. I mean, you know best about a lot of this. So I'm going to hand this comment over to you and then get to Brad, and then we need to wrap up.
20 years ago, then presidential candidate Howard Dean talked about a 50-state strategy. And the point is to be active in every corner. While it may be tough to win a certain seat in certain rural parts of Virginia, for example, you will lose statewide. We lost the governorship in Mecklenburg County, right? So we lost the governorship in CD9. And so while it may be tough to get to 51% in some of these areas, not being at 25%, but rather being at 35, 40% is how we win the governorship in 25, is how we hold on to the U.S. Senate, so on and so forth. You're exactly right. We've got to run strong everywhere.
Yeah, Brad, I'm going to let you go into this conversation. Brad, by the way, your hot pickles are delicious. Thank you for the hot pickles. One thing I love about this community here is when Brad came into the Women's Summit, he brought us all jars of pickles. You may need to bring those back. Yeah.
No
okay,
worries.
thank you, Brad.
I owe Fanal a jar of pickles too.
So watch out, everybody. Pickles.
Just let me know what flavor you want. I got about 12 different ones.
Hot pickle. Go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say to Patty, here in Shenandoah County, I'm a loudmouth. I make no bones about it. I yell, I scream. The people at DPBA know us very well now. We get all the support we want. The loyal opposition knows us very well. We write opinion editorial articles in the local paper. I called out our school board just yesterday for being Christo-fascists and white nationalists. And of course, that generates a lot of content for the local paper. Be loud, have your shit together, state your piece, be able to defend yourself, and go as broadly as you possibly can. And if you can't be a content expert on everything, like Sam was saying, find a lane, find a channel, and get good at it, and then take the Rachel Bidikofer technique and just pivot and bash. I have no problem doing that with these guys.
I love it, with a jar of pickles in one hand and hot sauce in the other. Brad, thank you. I want to make sure we wrap up. Pamela, hold on to your hand as we say, because it's 1:00. We need to get to the other side and run credit. So Sam, are you going to stay with us a little bit on the other side?
I will.
Okay. All right. So thanks. So what I want to say for next week, Fennell, next week, we want to talk about our programming, and obviously thank you to our patrons in the room. And if anybody's thinking about supporting us, this is a great time to do it. But next week programming.
Yeah, so next week we're going to have Deepak Puri on, and he is from the Democracy Labs. And it is really wonderful. All of it is not tech, but a lot of it is, but there are other pieces of it that you can use. So we will devote the same amount of time next week to Deepak. And if there are any resources that you guys need ahead of time, we will make sure that you get a note out to know what you should download ahead of time. But we're going to give all of us the opportunity to, on just one or two things, to really level up our skills. And when you leave the call, you should just be as full and competent as you feel today leaving Sam's call.
Yeah, no doubt. And Stephanie, get ready to run those credits. So we'll go the other side. If everybody's familiar with the show, it's the after chat. It'll be great to hear from everybody. Thank you for the team. And Robin is in Italy. And Robin, buongiorno, arrivederci, ita cannoli. We're glad you're having some great vacation time. Let's get to the other side. Thank you to the team, and let's go.